So this lesson was accommodated for our student Anne. We've suspected that she might have issues with typing in terms of her confidence for that. So just to make a note of that. Let's see. This is our lesson for the short story, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, as well as a short poem. Go on to the next slide, please. Okay. So, have you read any of the Goosebumps books before? Anyone? Ryan or Alex or Lindsay? No, you haven't read any of the Goosebumps books before? Okay. How about any of the movies? The one with Jack Black? Yes? Okay, awesome. What's your favorite Halloween movie? Good one. I love that one. All right. So, go ahead and hit play on that real quick. This is just to get us really excited for our short story. So we're not going to read any Goosebumps today because that would require us to read the entire book. So instead we decided to read a short story from the book Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is a book compiled of similar shorter stories and a very spooky poem that has an unknown author. Hopefully that short clip got you really excited for what we're about to get into. You can go on to the next slide. So today we're going to be taking a look at the sixth grade English standard. More specifically, this is a reading literature standard that asks us to compare and contrast texts that use similar themes or topics. Next slide. So we'd like you to be able to compare and contrast our short story and the poem that we've chosen and do so by creating a Venn diagram. Next slide. In this lesson, we were thinking about having you type into our Jamboard. Have you ever used Jamboard before, anyone? Lindsay says no. Ryan says no. All right, awesome. So this is a website where we can post drawings and write sticky notes and other fun stuff like that. Since we're going to have you type, we'd like to know how comfortable you feel about your typing skills. You can say on a scale of 1 to 10, I feel super confident, being 10, or 1, I'm not that confident. Awesome. So if anybody doesn't feel super confident, then we would really appreciate it if you could unmute when we get to the activity portion of this lesson, as well as when we have any questions for you within the rest of the lesson as well. Next slide. Okay, so when we talk about comparing and contrasting, would you say that it has helped you with understanding things a little bit better? Yes, awesome. So have any of you compared and contrasted two books or maybe two short stories before? Oh, nice. Cool. So, comparing and contrasting really helps us with understanding the little details in certain situations, or in this specific case, with understanding the details in text. We can utilize comparing and contrasting in our daily lives to help us make better decisions as well. For example, I've made a pros and cons list of all the different states that I would like to live in within the next 5 years. So we also have a few other vocab words. We'd really like you to focus on tone for this lesson. This is what the author is wanting the reader, us, to experience. In other words, this is the writer's attitude within or about the story. Another vocab word is beams. This is a car's headlight being set to the brightest setting. And one word that we really would like you guys to take into account is suspense. This is a state of feeling of being excited or anxious about being uncertain about what may happen. And next slide. All right, so we're going to go through our first short story called High Beams. Sorry, I have to make the screen bigger here so I can read it. The girl driving the old blue sedan was a senior at the high school. She lived on a farm about 8 miles away and used the car to drive back and forth. She had driven into town that night to see a basketball game. Now she was on her way home. As she pulled away from the school, she noticed a red pickup truck follow her out of the parking lot. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. I guess we're going in the same direction, she thought. She began to watch the truck in her mirror. When she changed her speed, the driver of the truck changed his speed. When she passed a car, so did he. Then he turned on his high beams, flooding her car with light. He left them on for almost a minute. He probably wants to pass me, she thought. But she was becoming uneasy. Usually she drove home over a back road. Not too many people went that way. When she turned onto that road, so did the truck. I've got to get away from him, she thought, and she began to drive faster. Then he turned his high beams on again. So, let's see. Before we go on to the next page, what do you guys think the tone is of the story so far? Remember that the tone is what the author would like the reader to feel. Awesome. Anxious. Yep. So all those tones are perfect. That's the fun thing about reading, is that whatever conclusions you come to are correct, as long as you're able to come up with evidence to support that opinion. We found that the tone of this short story is suspenseful. So what sentence creates the most suspense from the last page? Can you guys pick one? You can pick either 1, 2, or 3. Lindsay says 3. Does everyone else agree with that? Let's see. Awesome. Okay, you can go on to the next page. After a minute, he turned them off. Then he turned them on again and off again. She drove even faster, but the truck driver stayed right behind her. Then he turned his high beams on again. Once more, her car was ablaze with light. What is he doing? She wondered. What does he want? Then he turned them off again. But a minute later, he had them on again, and he left them on. At last, she pulled into her driveway, and the truck pulled in right behind her. She jumped from the car and ran to the house. "Call the police!" she screamed at her father. Out in the driveway she could see the driver of the truck. He had a gun in his hand. When the police arrived, they started to arrest him, but he pointed to the girl's car. "You don't want me," he said. "You want him." Crouched behind the driver's seat, there was a man with a knife. As the driver of the truck explained it, the man slipped into the girl's car just before she left the school. He saw it happen, but next slide, please. He saw it happen, but there was no way he could stop it. He thought about getting the police, but he was afraid to leave her, so he followed her car. Each time the man in the back seat reached up to overpower her. The driver of the truck turned on his high beams, then the man dropped down, afraid that someone might see him. So I have a quick question for that. Are you guys able to visualize what is occurring in that scene? Yes? All right. What are some words or phrases that might stick out to you within this slide? Reached up. Oh, yep. Very good. Okay. Next slide. So your answers can be within the Venn diagram. So for example, you can go to the Venn diagram here. We know that the setting for high beams is going to be a car. So we can say, we can open the text here, text box, setting is in a vehicle. Mm. Awesome. That's really good. Did anybody find that one story or poem was more suspenseful than the other? I would say, for myself, I would say that they were equally suspenseful. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. That's really good. Okay. Well, and then I think there's one more question. Is there anything that stuck out to you that was different or similar in the stories? So would you say that maybe scary stories to tell in the dark, maybe they were similar in the aspect of they were modern times, or maybe they were different in the aspect of one was a high school student and one might be an elementary school student? So those are all really good things to take into account. And then we also have our feedback generator, which is Alex. I think I was also surprised by the fact that there were repeating phrases within both stories. Hmm. All right, thank you guys. We'll head back to Zoom now.